Hi, Angelica, and hi, Johan. It is a pleasure to have you today as our guest speaker for the People in Gestalt People in Gestalt in OD world. This is our third in a row interview, so you are our third guest as such, and we feel really privileged to have you in this next hour of our space sharing together. I'm going to start introducing you briefly so that the people who are going to watch this video know a bit more about you. I guess you're familiar to some of the colleagues around the world. For some, you might be someone who is less familiar. So we will give them an overview of your background. You have your background in OD with long experience in organizational transformation. You're also a trained leadership supervisor from the Swedish Defense University and Gestalt psychotherapist from the University of Gothenburg in UK. You're also teaching Agile Ways of Working at the Digital Leadership MSc program at the Department of Applied IT, Division of Informatics at the University of Gothenburg. Today, you're a full-time employee at Volvo Car Group as the global leader people strategy and engagement, and you live by the sea in Sweden, breeding Labradors and Spaniels when not working. This is only a brief outlook of everything that you have been doing throughout your career life. Is there something else that you would like us to add on this, or this is a good enough description of who you are?
Yeah, I think it is. I've been working for a while, and of course, family, father. I have 3 children, all grown up, and I also have a granddaughter. So it's that's me. Family, dogs, and work, and based in Gestalt. That's what you can say. It's and of course, OD. I don't do psychotherapy anymore. I don't have the time to follow a client over time. So then I'm more in the organizational world at the moment, which is fine also.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like a good work-life balance and a nice way to combine Gestalt with OD. So basically, as you said, your background is in Gestalt psychotherapy. You equally have long years of experience in coaching and OD work. What did you take from your experience as a Gestalt psychotherapist into the corporate world? What work do you do at the Volvo at the moment? Can you say a bit more about your position there and how you incorporate or use Gestalt in everyday work?
Yes, of course, I can do that. If I start to talk a little bit about Volvo, I started to work there as a consultant for many years. So I've been following the company in different stages, you could say. When it was owned by AB Volvo, the big company, also doing trucks and engines for boats and things like that. And then Volvo Car, the car division, was sold to Ford. And I was still a consultant there. And at that time, it was a lot of suffering in the auto industry. And it was really tough for Volvo Cars to become something creative and alive, you could say. It was a lot about doing what someone told you. And of course, Ford is a very big company, so Volvo Cars was just a small department there. And then Ford had to sell it to Geely, a Chinese owner. And that was really interesting, because what could a Chinese owner do with a Swedish car company? And I was still a consultant working with one of the management teams, and I remember myself waking up that morning saying, oh my God, now we have been suffering in different decades and in different situations and so on. What can this do, and how will it end up here? And the interesting thing at that time, the instruction to the executive management team at Volvo Cars when the new owner came in was a very interesting sentence. They said, unleash the tiger. And say to someone, unleash the tiger, instead of doing this traditional command and control, and we should do it like this, and building hierarchies and things like that. I was really like close to be a little bit shocked when I heard it. And then a great journey started out for Volvo Cars, taking the lead and starting to become themselves, to be who they are. And that is very much Gestaltish, you could say. if we follow Gestalt, we always say that try to be yourself. It's a very good investment in your life. And at that time, maybe a year or 2 years after, I was asked to join in Volvo Cars and help to build up the Volvo Car Academy with in-house trainings of leadership and teams and things like that. So I did it. And then after a while, I was asked if I could also do some work around leadership. And then I started to understand from a systemic view, what is leadership and how do you do it in an industrial company with about 43,000 people? And then if you look at the academic work, there is few common ideas about what is leadership then. And I tried to understand it a little bit more, and I was interested in what kind of problems do we handle. It could be like standard operative problems or procedures. That's more management. I think there is an idea, there is a way of doing that. And I saw it like if you have this, you remember this Rubik's Cube is, maybe it could be very hard for someone, but someone can really do it. But there is a standard operative solution there. And then I was thinking about there are other problems also, maybe more simpler or maybe more complex in a way. And I did run into this idea also about wicked problems. It's like you don't have an answer. It's so wicked that you don't have an answer, and you can't go to maybe a consultancy firm or maybe to researcher because they don't have the answer. And that also got me very interested in this emerging world where you're working together, you collaborate, you work together, and then see how could we handle this, you could say, wicked problem or very complex problem there. And so I started to reflect a little bit about that, and at that time Volvo Car needed a few people working with the people strategy to say, because Volvo Car is an old company, it's 90 years plus, and if you have an old company and then you have to become something else, because if you are only doing what you always have been doing, then probably you will have huge problems there, especially when you are into automotive. And especially when people are interested in cars in maybe other ways that they were interested in cars for 5 or 10 years or 20 years. So, and I was saying yes to that job, and together with 2 fantastic colleagues, we started to write the people strategy, a global one, and we were predicting the VUCA world. And now we have VUCA, we have COVID-19, that's VUCA. And we also met some people when we were talking about VUCA from the people strategy that they said, oh, we are so tired about VUCA, could we talk about something else? But today I have to say that we were very right about that. We talked about people's need for having a good working environment. You have to have good leadership. The idea of working more agile. The idea of working to become smarter, faster, and better. And what people really want to belong to, they want to belong to maybe a company who are a little bit smarter, faster, and better from a good purpose then. And at the same time, our executive management were also working on the idea of the company, because we were only working on the people strategy, how to think about people, leadership, assessments, all those stuffs that goes around people, payments, salaries, whatever. But executive management also did go in and was very interested in how do we become a purpose-driven company. And then you can see that the purpose also, it's a little bit gestaltic in a way also. I think that if you don't have a purpose, if you don't know why you are there, what is the meaning of it, and how does it become meaningful? It's like when you are really closing the gestalt, when you have like, okay, I understand, this is a good ending point here. If you understand, then you are very united and focusing on something here. They brought up this idea, and you can you can read about that in Volvo Cars homepage, but they wrote this idea about that the purpose of Volvo Cars is to create a freedom to move in a sustainable, safe way. And this freedom to move, I think, is very interesting because, of course, we will have cars, but people want to maybe move in different ways. Maybe they would like to rent a car, or maybe they need a car for a few months, or maybe they could share a car together in a small community, or maybe some people say that we are not interested in horsepowers and things like that. We would like to have an electrified car because then I can load it with solar power, or I would like to have a car that could take me from A to B, and I can do something else. And then you see that it's a big shift then in the auto industry, that it's not only a car, it's some kind of movement you are buying that. And that has been very interesting for me. And I also predicted that in the people strategy work, that if we don't go into the big disruption that we have around us, and that is about becoming more digital. You know, the society becomes digital and so on, and that is also disrupting in a way. It's the same now. We are doing this little interview here, or maybe we could have a workshop over Zoom. So Zoom takes over the business from flight operator, KLM. They could fly me in or fly you guys in, and then we could have a meeting. And then but they will not have any money from that. That's a disruption. So this and a big disruptor we have, which is very interesting, is to go digital then. So and we were looking at that in the people strategy group, that if Volvo Cars are going to provide the people, you know, competence models, salary models, easy access to information, easy access to communicate and get connected. This is very gestaltic, you know. If you don't have connection, then we will not have change. And I was thinking about that a lot when I was writing that we should become the masters of change at Volvo Cars, because change is so important when you want to go in this transformational idea. You are something and you want to become something else here. And if you don't have those tools or those ways of doing that, probably you will not change. You will just talk about it. And a lot of organizations are doing that. And so we started to go, when it comes to HR, to say that we need to have a more agile way of working, the agile mindset. And so we started up, we had a lot of arguing, and we had a lot of people saying, yeah, but maybe a project is better, or how can we do agile? We don't really understand, and so on. But we started out and started doing Scrum. And that was really interesting when we did Scrum, and we did produce some value for the company. We did have new products coming up, and then we started to align also with the digital side of Volvo Cars. We have people working with IT or digital, and saying that we need to collaborate. We can't be that organization who are in silos, because the silo itself slows things down, and sometimes an organizations become stupid by the silo thinking. So we started to collaborate, and that was really good. And then we had more agile teams coming in and starting working. And we had then going from just the team level to a program level. And a program level is when you are having a lot of teams that have the need for connecting and starting looking for dependencies in the teams, but also if there is any hindrance, that will hinder the team from producing value or products. So we started to do that, and then I understood that we have to educate ourselves then. So I did train myself to become a release train engineer, an RT, because Volvo Cars has also this safe structure, which is very important because it's framing the way of working, so you can focus on different parts of when it comes to development in the organization and also implementation. So I did that, and I had colleagues there. They were trained themselves to program managers and product owners and scrum masters and so on. And we started up academies where people could join in and learn how do we become more agile in a way there. And how has Gestalt helped me then in doing that? This co-creation, I think, that's very Gestaltic, that you work in a system, you work together. And also, they talk in the Agile way of working, they talk about mindset. But for me, I'm interested in the phenomenological part, the theory about the consciousness, you could say, or becoming more aware. Mm-hmm. And I have learned early that the more I talk about Gestalt when I'm working with people don't know it, the more they are resisting. So I never use words, I never talk about that, I do it instead. And I think that's the best thing. You go in, you do it instead of talking about it.
And I think you're the perfect example of putting into practice in large systems. And that's what you inspired in me into seeing how you've shaped Gestalt in a corporate world. And from what I'm hearing, you seem to have devised a master plan for dealing with the VUCA world that, in my opinion, a lot of world leaders could learn from you.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And linking to the second question, and you'll have the opportunity to speak, because it links, because the one of the first times we met, you did talk a lot about command and control and how it needs to shift. And now I'm hearing all the infrastructure you've created to shift command and control. Could you tell us something more from what you already told us in the first question around command and control?
Yes, I can. When Volvo Car was owned by Ford, it's an American company, and the hierarchy is mostly invented in US when it comes to organizations, and of course it's also have this military background also. So, but what happens when you have an American owner, or when you are in an American company, it's very common that you have your position in the hierarchy, and then you have your salary. You have like a salary box. You have a title and you have a position. But that makes an organization become very, very stiff, you could say. And what do you want? You want a dynamic organization where I do a job today, but maybe I can do something tomorrow. I could maybe become a project leader or something, or maybe I could become a manager in some area, whatever. But in those hierarchies, people are afraid of, and that's what I also learned in Gestalt, which is in Gestalt ODNE, which is interesting when you talk about status, power, and pecking order. Because in this world of command and control, there is, of course, status. It is, of course, pecking order, and then it's, of course, power. And the problem is that type of organization, people are a little bit afraid of the person who has a higher rank. And that is not good, because then people loses their psychological safety, which is very popular today to talk about and write about. And you could say that instead of command and control, I think what you really need is, what people are looking for is order. If you have a good order, if you have a good standard. And that's why it's so interesting with the SAFE framework here, because everybody says that, okay, but it's levels, they say when they look at the safe map you can see. No, it's not level, it's frames. And I'm interested in art since I was young, and I know the frame itself was invented by the artist to have us to focus on some part here. If they make it's like behind you here, it's a nice painting here, and if we have a frame, I'm looking at it, I'm focusing on it. And that's what we really need also. We need to be aware, we need to be here and now, and we need to focus on maybe a task and make sure that as sooner or better we can finish that task. And then of course when it comes to development and a creative way of helping an organization to transform, then it has to be, then you are into emergence in a way. And that's interesting with the agile way of working, because you are working in iterations. We are working in a sprint that takes 2 weeks to develop. And when we have done the sprint, we are doing some kind of retroflexion. We are looking for what did go well, what should we keep, and what should we try to do different. That's learning. And then when you have ended that, that's an emergent way of doing it, then you go into a new sprint. But the traditional command and control, you have this waterfall, you have a project leader who is everybody's looking at, and then that person has to make a perfect plan. And then that person has to tell everybody, if we do this, we will have this. Yes, in a predicted world, probably, in simple projects. But if we have those wicked problems, or if we have those complex problems where we don't really know if this action here will take us to the end, or if this action will take us somewhere else, then you have to do it more in iterations. And that's why I think Agile is so interesting in a way of doing that. But to do that also, you have to understand that if you are taking away command and control, what can you do instead? Yes, you can give control to people, but then you have to also to show that you trust them. But if you're building that type of environment where I say, Angelica, I give you the control here, you take the control here, because we really trust you that you will deliver something, but please come back if there is any, if you fail, let's learn. But in this command and control environment, sometimes if people fail, they are shaming themselves, or they are maybe hiding it because they don't want to feel the pain of not succeeding in a way. So but I also know that there are some systems you have to do right directly. You can't fly an airplane with a lot of people and then fail. You have to train yourself before here. But if you are developing an organization and have them to become something else, to do this transformational work, then you have to go into those iterations and those ideas about fail to learn, or as someone wrote in a book, say yes to the mess. Which I think is very gestaltic also. So yeah, that's what I
Thank you. I think it's quite a short encompassing of command and control and how it can be used or misused in organizations.
Yeah, and I see also when you are doing command and control, people of course do what they are being told, but the effect is that they don't do more. But if you say to people, let's this is an idea we have, let's do it, and let's do it together. And I think the thing for me is we do it together, and that's something I learned when I was a Gestalt therapist. Also, I have a client, and we did this session in Gestalt therapy. We did it together. So I didn't look at the person coming to me as an object. It was this meeting with two subjects here, and we have this kind of relation building up here, and it was emerging in a way, and then then it will take us further. So, and of course, I'm applying that every day in my job.
Well, it is the next step for relational leadership in a way that it's much needed.
Very needed. Very needed.
Especially now.
In these times in which we are currently living. And it's interesting, as you were reflecting, something passed through my mind that by having command and control, actually managers also are suffering, because then they go into micromanaging, which poses additional stress on their plate. And it's really important to be aware of what we're communicating and how much freedom we give, because as you said, when we stop looking at individuals as objects, then we allow space for co-creation and something new to emerge. And I guess related on that note, it's funny how we should have met in May in person in Skopje, but due to this whole situation with Corona and the COVID, everything got postponed. So the ODNE Balkan event that was initially planned to be held here in Skopje in May got cancelled. And as you mentioned in the beginning, this whole situation with the virus is a nice example of a VUCA world in which we're living. So I'm just curious of how did this situation affected the way of how you're working currently in the company to which you belong?
Yeah, we had to shift from sitting in physical meetings to go digital. We had to work with large groups digital. We had this, in the Agile world, we are doing in increment in every 12 weeks. We have this product increment planning, PI planning. And in my case, we have like 150 people from all over the world. And ordinary, we used to fly people in, and then we had meetings and very few on link. Now we had everybody. And that was interesting because that forced me and my colleague to make sure how long could people stay online and having their attention. What would be the most important things for them to work with, and how can we engage them? So if they connect, then they will act and start changing things. And we did it. We used Teams because we don't have Zoom. I think Zoom sometimes are much better, but we used Teams, and we created those breakout rooms and things like that. And we did it, instead of doing 2 days, we had like 2 half days. And they gave us feedback, and on the score of 0 to 10, we had 8.4, and that was the first time. And people really enjoyed that. And I think that VUCA situation has pushed us into become a little bit more creative then, and do the best and keep up this engagement for delivering something that is valuable. So I think what is the kind of problem we need to solve, and are we delivering value? I think those kind of questions are very important to ask yourself when you are working with people in a different way where you're used to do it. And then of course you are missing a lot also. If you're sitting in the same room, you will see how people act, and I think you have more of the feeling of maybe if someone is a little bit sad or angry or whatever, then you can pick up on that. But that was good. And we started also to use our digital tools that we have. One is Azure DevOps, which is very important when you are developing in an agile environment. You need to work with Azure DevOps and make sure that we have good standards, and then it's clarity and people find documents, and we are using it in a good way, and that has also started up. So really, really good. But then you have to change yourself. So I had to change myself. I never work on remote with 150 people from my small, tiny computer. But now I do it because I know we can do it. And that is also interesting to see how can we really connect all over the world. We don't have to fly in I'm thinking of the business. I would love to come to Skopje and to Macedonia. I'm really interested of your country and so on. And even one of my colleagues, her parents are from there. And I told her about this, and she was, oh, I'm so interested, and so on. But I think when we talked about it, was a little bit more of seeing the people and eating the food and drinking the wine, you know, things like that. But we can do things like this, and we could connect with other gestaltists maybe who are in Australia, or maybe there are someone in Africa or whatever. But we can do that, and this so connection is very interesting, I think, when it comes to that. And that, of course, if you are a Gestalt person, you are always interested in the kind of experience of the connection.
And yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And it brings me to the next question. With so much experience you have in your background, can you tell us an anecdote as working as an internal Gestalt practitioner or external consultant, whatever comes first to your mind?
Yeah, I was thinking about that question. What do you think about the situation, or could you say a little bit more? What are you thinking about an anecdote?
Oh, well, we've had the two previous ones described cases. I mean, cases. Some funny moments of working in organizations. You said that people don't really understand Gestalt, and I align with you with that. I don't really use Gestalt. Have you ever had any funny moments with anyone using experiments or visualization or anything we might be using?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you're doing kinds of role play, when you can become someone else, and when you do that, and when you bring up like a topic that is maybe a little bit hot, but if you can sometimes you can ask someone else to role play your situation, and then you can see it by yourself. You can see how do they talk and how do they act and so on. Those things are very interesting. And I also had this exercise, maybe other people have, but this exercise when one person is blindfolded and the other person have their eyes open, and then you put your hands together, and then you are leading one person. Have you done that exercise? Yeah, maybe.
I've never done it with
yeah, but then you are leading the person, and then you are doing it again, or then you are shifting, so the other person can also feel how it is to be led by someone when you are closing your eyes. And then you change, and then you have, instead of having your hand, you have only the fingertip, and you do it again. So you are blindfolded and I'm open, and we do it, and then I'm blindfolded and you have your eyes open, and we do it with only the fingertip. The next part of that, what we do is to shift. So the people with the open eyes, they shift, so they always get someone with the closed eyes. And that is interesting. And after we have done that, I'm stopping the exercise, and then you will have a person that you didn't start with. And then I ask those people, could you sit down and reflect a little bit how it was for you to be led, how it was for you to lead, and how it was for you to have a new unknown leader? And do you recognize anything about this in your everyday work life? And when people are sitting down talking about that, they can't stop talking, because there are so much in this. And we're talking about this, how much contact, the small one, the big one, having someone, maybe not having contact, maybe they hook you and run you around the floor, and have a new leader, and how you feel that, when it's, you really feel that this is another person here. And what I'm trying to cover up here, and this is not my exercise from the beginning, I've learned it from so many great people in Gestalt world. But for me, it's important always to go back to the theory about awareness, the phenomenological way, express that, but also the field theory, to bring that into, you know, the driving forces and the resisting forces. And then for me, the theory about the working relationship, which is about dialogue. And then if I could cover in that into an exercise, doing it in a practical way, instead of standing there talking about phenomenological field or dialogical, you know, all those things, instead of talking about that, because I think if you want to be a practitioner in Gestalt, then you have to read and learn and talk about it. But when you meet people in organizations, they are not interested in that. And I think that is a big problem for Gestalt, in a way that we have been trying to have a type of identity, or a type of a, you know, oh, you are Gestalt, you know. But I have friends who are psychologists and doctors, and there's a lot of people doesn't say, oh, you're a doctor. They say, oh, you're a doctor. Oh my God, I will go away from you. So I think it's more of do it then, in a way, because as the founders of Gestalt, it was really interesting. How could they even choose that word, Gestalt therapy? And I think they wrote about that they were talking about the here and now, or awareness therapy, or something like that. And that is more easy to understand for the common.
Yeah,
so,
and your example beautifully illustrates putting into practice theory.
Yeah. There is, and of course there is a lot of others examples also, but you know, practice it. It's a lot about being here and now. To do it. As they say, as those showmakers say, just do it. I like that. Yeah, I immediately bought myself a T-shirt many years ago when it said "just do it," and I said to myself, "That's Gestalt."
It does relate, and thank you for giving us a nice example and an exercise that can be used for working with a group and exploring new ways of being. And since this is the first time that I'm meeting you in this way, I have to say I'm fascinated of how you're combining Gestalt and Lean Agile way of working. So I know that you spoke briefly in the beginning. I'm just curious if you were about to add something more. Can you say of how did you ended up combining these two different approaches or ways of working in your everyday work and organizational development? Because it's not something, at least for me, it's not something that I would have imagined using or combining in this way.
No, I think it was, it just happened. It was not planned. But I'm interested in, because as a Gestaltist, I'm interested in learnings. And I think learning comes from the idea of contacting the environment, from the small child to the adult one. We are contacting and we are learning, we are tasting and testing and so on. And this idea about exploring. So I did meet those people talking about Agile and really listening in. And I didn't have any negative experience or any friends who, because there are people also saying that Agile is that's VUCA or that's not good also. But I was interested in that. So, and I did, and then I listened in and I said, this is really good, because this is about emergence in a way. And I'm so interested in the emergent way of transforming, or how you become something else, or how you become more who you are, and things like that. So I started to, in the beginning, I was reading about Scrum and how do they do Scrum, and I was also introduced to a lot of Scrum exercises and things like that. And I was also working as a Scrum Master for a half year. With the team, I was doing other stuff also, but that was so interesting doing that, you know, really here and now. And I was tasting it, like when I remember when I started to work with my own clients as a Gestalt therapist. It was this, you know, it was real, it was alive. And in that way, when we're working with Scrum, you're working with a team, and everybody has a saying. It is always the team who's delivering, and the team is also prioritizing the team. Everything is done by the team. and this total meeting of collaboration. And it's far away from what I was used from in the organizational way, that people are spending mostly time in meetings, one person talking, and the rest is quite quiet, and maybe just a few saying something. Or they are sending emails. Or to be very productive, at least when I talk about Swedish companies, sometimes we are in meetings, and the most productive thing from the meeting is that we create a new meeting. And I think a lot of people can recognize that. We have meetings and we have emailings and we are doing a lot of stuff. But when we feel at the best, when we are really smarter and faster and better in many ways, it's when we end things. And that is very Gestaltic, isn't it? To have a closure, to have an ending. So I saw, and I saw, oh, those guys working in Scrum, they are of course working in this sprint for 2 weeks to end a feature. And a feature is a functionality of something. It's like, now we can put on the lights with this button in the car or whatever. And it's the same here, but in the Agile way of working, you can't do it like a project in everything either. You can't say like, in 2 weeks you have better self-confidence. You can't say that to any client. And it's the same in the Agile world. You can't say that either. You can't say that in 2 weeks from now we will have a car only running on batteries. We already had, but if we say like that. But we can say that we would like to have it. We would like to put a man on the moon, but we don't know when. But the more we work together and the more we are doing things together in a good way, and the more we are learning, and the more we are learning on the learning, and we really create this kind of knowledge, then we will have a man on the moon or a woman. And you see how that's how people are working well together. And that's a lot about how we do in the Gestalt, where we are working. We can work together about something and including people and so. And maybe the Agile world is a little bit more focused, maybe in because in Gestalt we can also work with as it is, and that's fine in a way. But you know, if you are in some kind of production or in some kind of organization or whatever, you want to fulfill something, you want to transport yourself, or you want to take care of a task or whatever you have. So for me that was quite natural that it fits together. But I don't talk in the Agile world about Gestalt, and I don't seldom talk about Agile in the Gestalt world, because I don't really know how do you do it. It's quite new for me, but this has been my big interest so far. And it all comes to, because we are in a digital world and we will be more digitalized, even more and more. So maybe Gestalt is quite modern then. I don't know, what do you think? Yeah.
You've made me quite curious about Agile for sure. And I do think that Gestalt will be rejuvenating soon enough. So we might be seeing a bit more modernity of what you're doing in the Gestalt world in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think so. And there was a couple of people in Sweden who had this little workshop. I couldn't join in because something happened at my job. But they had a workshop talking about Agile and Gestalt, and that I think that's very good. I don't know the outcome of it, but.
And we come to the end of this interview. I really enjoyed all the questions. And before we end this, could you give an advice or suggestion to anyone interested as an internal OD practitioner into leaning more into the Gestalt way?
Yeah, I think if you are in OD and you want to do more of Gestalt, I think that be very good about this idea about the awareness. I think that is the key thing in many ways. To have a phenomenological way of working, really practice and learn that, because that is a practice. It is nothing you can just write a paper on and then you have some points from the university. This is really something that you have to practice, the phenomenological way. Be good at that and find people who are good at that, or have someone giving you feedback on that or whatever. It's a learning, and it's a great learning curve. I try to do that every day to find myself to really practice the phenomenological way of entering a room or the world or a situation. And then I think the more scientific theories about field theory, to go in and see what did I really write about when it comes to the field theory, and see how has it also evolved and become maybe into a systemic view or complexity and so on, but never forget that we have that root in Gestalt, that we are interested in the field and possibilities, and also the challenges when you are entering a field from the field theory. And the third thing is for me, the theory about the working relation. Practice and learn what is really dialogue, and also be aware of that. It can be in some cases very modern to say let's have a dialogue, but for sure it's very seldom a dialogue, and it's very tough to practice the dialogue in organizations, because organizations are so interested in let's have a meeting for 45 minutes and we are having 7 bullets that we will go through. But if you put in the dialogue here, it will really scramble everything around. But sometimes the dialogue itself helps us to see what we don't see, and helps us to listen to and hear things that we don't hear. And maybe the dialogue also will help us to do things that we haven't done, or maybe we should do. So for me, it's like those 3 areas is something I try to practice and be aware of when I'm doing my Gestalt in organizations. Yeah.
Thank you. And of course, the audience of ODNE will have the possibility to listen in the previous 2 videos talking about relational organizational Gestalt by Marianne and Sally, and field theory from Malcolm Carlett. So wow. It's a great ending and connection that everything is correlated. Thank you, Johan.
Thank you, dear colleagues, Gestalt colleagues, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.